If you thought the T app data breach was bad, you haven't seen anything yet. We now have confirmation of a second, far worse security breach that has exposed over 1.1 million private messages containing some of the most sensitive personal information you can imagine. And it gets worse. Unlike what T was saying about the data breach we previously covered being old data, this isn't old data. These messages are from as recent as last week. Stay tuned because what I'm about to show you will change how you think about app security forever. All right, so recently I covered the initial T-app data breach that exposed 72,000 images, including 13,000 selfies and government IDs like driver's licenses. For those who missed it, T is a women-only dating safety app that went viral and hit #1 on the App Store. Users would verify their identity with selfies and IDs to share information about men they've dated. Sounded like a good idea, really ended up not being in the end. But what we thought was the full scope of the breach was just the tip of the iceberg. All right, so here's a timeline. The initial breach was discovered on roughly July 24th, 25th by 4chan users who found an unsecured Firebase storage bucket. Ooh, not great. On July 28th, security researcher Kasra Rajerdi discovered a second exposed database. A second one? Really, guys? Also on the same day, 404 Media started to cover this and confirmed access to over 1.1 million private direct messages. This is now the second breach, and it is exponentially worse than the first one. But why is that? What makes this second breach so dangerous? Unlike the first breach, which involved what is claimed to be legacy data, from before February 2024, this second database contained messages from 2023 all the way up to last week. We're talking about real-time current conversations. The content of these messages is absolutely devastating from a privacy standpoint. You have things like medical information where discussions about abortions and other private health matters were discussed, personal relationship conversations about cheating partners and infidelity, contact information including phone numbers and real names, and social media handles, all making it trivial to identify supposedly anonymous users. 404 Media, who broke this story, reported that they could easily identify real users based solely on the information shared in these private messages. Remember, T markets itself as an anonymous platform where women can supposedly safely share information. That anonymity has been completely shattered. But how did this happen? The security researcher found that users could access this message database using their own API keys. Essentially, the app's backend was so poorly secured that users could query databases that should never have access to it. This is security 101, guys. If you're a developer, don't be like this. Because even more concerning, the researcher also discovered they could send push notifications to all T users. That's a level of system access that suggests fundamental security architecture problems. No duh. T's initial response was telling. They claimed the first breach only involved legacy data from over 2 years ago, but this second database proves that was either incomplete information or a deliberate attempt to minimize the scope of the breach. Possible third is they are so incompetent when they claimed to have fixed the initial breach, they didn't even think, hey, let's do a security audit and see what other issues we might have. Maybe they started that and weren't done with it yet. I don't know. But this is really damning. The fallout from both breaches has been severe. With data distribution, T has gone from the #1 free app to facing a potential exodus of users. And really, this is earned. This is completely earned. Come on. This is not good. Now, I have to address the very obvious elephant in the room here. There is a certain irony to this situation that just can't be ignored. T was designed as a platform where women could anonymously expose and potentially defame men based on their dating experiences. The app essentially encouraged users to share private, potentially damaging information about individuals, often without those people even knowing they're being discussed. And there was no real way for anyone on the app to come out and defend themselves and tell their side of the story. But now the tables have completely turned. The very users who were comfortable sharing intimate details about others now find their own most private conversations, including discussions about abortions, cheating, and personal relationships, are now all potentially exposed to the world. From a pure tech perspective, the security failures here are staggering. The first breach happened because data was stored in a publicly accessible bucket. This second breach was possible through inadequate access controls. Keeping verification selfies despite claiming they were deleted is just a no-no. And then having two separate vulnerable databases suggests systemic security problems. But beyond the technical failures, maybe this breach should serve as a wake-up call about the kind of digital culture we're creating. When we build platforms designed to expose and judge others, we really shouldn't be surprised when that same exposure eventually comes back around. This isn't just one mistake, it's a pattern that reflects both poor security practices and questionable ethical foundations that put 1.6 million users at risk. As of today, July 29th, T has taken the affected message system offline. They're working with cybersecurity experts and law enforcement. There's no evidence of broader system access, though that's what they said before the second breach was discovered, so grain of salt, I guess. The investigation is also ongoing with promises of timely updates. We'll see about that. But here's what concerns me. If there were two exposed databases, how do we know there aren't more? T's credibility on security matters is now in serious question. From a tech standpoint, this is unacceptable. You should never have built your app in such an insecure way. Everyone involved should be fired. This case study shows us two important lessons. First, you need to be extremely careful about what personal information you share with any app, especially newer ones that haven't had their security thoroughly tested. But second, and perhaps more importantly, at least to me, maybe it's time we reconsider building our digital relationships around exposing and judging each other. The T app perfectly represents the culture we're in, where anonymously sharing potentially damaging information about others was not only acceptable, but encouraged. Now those same users are experiencing firsthand what it feels like to have their private information exposed. And honestly, there's women on this app that probably did use it for its intended purpose, just wanted to make sure they weren't being catfished or, wanting to do background checks on somebody that they were going to meet. Are there other apps that you could have used for this? Are there other services that are readily available for women to use for this? Yeah, but doesn't mean they deserve to have their data leaked. They were just trying to protect themselves. And to them, I feel genuinely sorry for this mishap that they're in. To the others that just wanted to go on this app and just bash men because they have some problem that they just can't resolve in their life, I don't feel sorry for you. And for the people that work at this company, if you're involved in this data breach, you coded something, you're in charge of the security architecture, any of the infrastructure, you deserve to lose your job. This is not good. All right, so rant over. Let's just get back to the core of this here. Because instead of creating platforms designed to tear each other down, maybe this breach can serve as a catalyst for building technology that brings us together. Men and women are supposed to work together, not wage digital warfare against each other through anonymous rating apps. The T-app breaches represent one of the most comprehensive privacy violations we've seen in the dating app space, but also represents the failure of such a toxic approach to digital relationships. If you are a T user or anyone else involved in a data breach of this magnitude, here's what I'd recommend that you do. Some pretty basic stuff, but I'd like to give some advice. You'll want to monitor your bank accounts and credit reports. I'd even recommend considering a freeze on your credit if you feel your ID was exposed. Be aware at all times that your private messages may be compromised. This story is still developing, and I'll do my best to cover any new developments as they happen. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss critical updates about this breach or other major tech or gaming related stories. But what do you think about the broader implications here? Do you see this as a wake-up call about how we treat each other in digital spaces? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this perspective valuable, smash that like button to help more people think critically about these issues. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace out. Bye.